Hey there, ladies. Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Lady Boss Show. I am excited and pleased to bring you the conversation that we're going to be having today. It's definitely it's already an epic conversation, and we haven't even started it yet. I'm being joined by Alina Apostol, who is a dear friend and also one of my family therapists. And Alina, I enjoy spending time with her because she has a special gift, which is something that I interestingly was curious about when I was a teenager and really came to understand and appreciate a lot more after spending time with Alina. And I'm not going to give it away in the intro because I actually want you guys to find out about this as we move through the conversation. But the primary intention behind this discussion is to support all the planning discussions we've been having about preparing for 2021. So I invited Alina because she has a very unique and universal filled way of looking at thinking about our future and thinking about how we will plan for a year or a time period in our lives. And I would love for her to share that with you and myself today. And I hope that you guys actually really enjoy it because I always like talking to her. When you guys watch the YouTube, you'll see that she's just quite lovely, just really beautiful. And just her energy is one that makes you feel like, yeah, I can face the year ahead, right? So welcome, Alina. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And I'm excited about this program, this project of yours. Women and men need a lot of support. They need a lot of help. We need help to understand ourselves, to be able to change, to shift, to embrace other ways and opinions and perspectives. As a therapist, I find the most frightening thing is to stay stuck.
Yes.
So projects like yours help a lot because you offer your perspective, but also many others' perspectives through your guest. And I think it's very rewarding what you do. People are learning and growing through what you do.
Oh, thank you so much, Alina. So I want to talk about what you do. And I think I don't know how you want to start it off. If you want to start it off by saying, well, I currently experience this as my career, and then talk about your journey. But I'm really curious about how did you get to become this type of therapist? What was that journey like? Like, did you wake up one morning and say, I think I'm going to go do this right here as my boardroom experience? What was that like?
No, it wasn't a decision that I made, a conscious intention to create this space, therapy and astrology together. It wasn't like that. I think it came out of a frustration, to be honest. I never studied anything else but psychology and human behavior. And I know this sounds very strange, but as a child and teenager and later on as a young adult, I always knew that I'm supposed to deal with human behavior and emotions and the boundary between what is accepted as normal and what's not.
Yeah.
So I had that intuition about me, and it was very much shaped by my growing up, my childhood, my environment. So
where did you grow up?
In Romania.
Okay, cool.
I'm from Romania. And I remember that my natural I invited in my life a lot of authors. I was reading a lot. So I was searching and looking for understanding and knowledge, not for the sake of knowledge, but to understand what was going on with life. Because my father he had schizophrenia, and I was I could never believe in mental illness in the way other people would. Like and in my work, I don't treat the symptom because I don't really believe in it. Maybe I'm utilizing the symptom like depression, anxiety, whatever you are dealing with. I'm utilizing that because there is something else behind that or beyond that. You
Okay.
know, you can call it soul, you can call it being, whatever the language is. So you see, I never fitted in the psychology of the times growing up, the 80s, 90s, 2000. And more I see that people are embracing a more holistic experience of our psyche, which is everything we are, not just mind, body, and soul. It's everything, environment, our interdependence with what is seen and unseen.
Right.
So I needed to create a field of work, or I needed to be active in a way that would have resonated and be in integrity with how I felt about it.
Mhm.
Because studying, going through school, getting my degrees, and then becoming a psychotherapist, you have to get trained in a certain type of therapy, and it never felt right. It never felt right because it was too much of a box, too many labels. So I was searching for my line of work. And I think my channel, or the car I was driving to get there, was language. Like language. Like I was using language as a tool to understand and expand understanding.
Mhm. Okay.
Because I find language to be very threatening, in the sense that once you make you say something and you think that, and you are not elastic anymore, you are not open anymore. And
Right.
language is very relative. It changes, it depends on culture, it's so relative. So language, psychology, and my love for myth, for stories, and for deeper understanding, they brought a lot of mythology into my life. So I was reading and I was consuming a lot of mythology. And as a chart, like as a natal chart, I have strong Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is the anthropologist. So I needed to discover other people's ways and other people's beliefs and traditions, and I did that through mythology. But I also needed the depth of that the depth of what's there underneath everything. And that's when psychology and mythology combine, and they are very easily expressed through astrological sessions or counseling.
Wow. Like, okay, talk about a weaving of an interesting web towards helping people, because ultimately that was the intuitive desire that you had, was to help people. And one of the things that I've learned from you in particular, Alina, is that astrology is really old medicine. And I feel that there was a period of time where we especially we're on the western side, we on the western side kind of made it something that was very distant from who we are as human beings, when that was the basis of a lot of science and medicine, way back,
Yes.
historically. So can you kind of share a little bit about how you connected those dots?
How astrology became so significant in my life?
Yes.
Well, I when you read mythology, especially Greek mythology, but any mythology, there is so much alignment between the archetypes, or the energies being described, the heroes, the situations, the battles, the overcoming.
Mm-hmm.
There is alignment with the sky. So a lot of our mythology is based on the relationship with the sky, because if you go into the history of astrology, you discover that everything on earth came to exist as a reflection of the sky. So how you build architecture, how you build your cities, how you create politics, and how you organize politics had to do with the primal myth about how earth was conceived.
Oh, that's so interesting.
We have to think beyond Christianity. So beyond first century, there's there are thousands of years
Yeah,
of existence.
and that's the part that I think we kind of neglect. I guess it's being you're taught to neglect it, right? That there was a whole bunch of stuff, thousands of years happening. BC, there's a whole bunch of things
Yeah.
that contribute.
Before Christ, so BC,
Yeah,
history and life BC, before Christ, is the foundation of everything we are sitting on right now.
yeah.
That is the foundation. Whether whether it's language, writing, drawing, everything in life, society, cities, power, psychology, everything.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, it's such a simple thing to do, to ignore that life. And we more and more in the last 20-30 years, we have rediscovered, like not necessarily that we haven't been connected to that, but it was more on an academic level that people were connected to the past. But now, because of this spread of technology and social media, more and more movements came alive, and we went into the Egyptian culture, and we learn more about spirituality through the past, and
Yes.
yoga
Yes.
spread, and Vedic culture came alive again. So a lot of our life on earth was reflected and was being built based on the mythology that included the sky. There was no story on earth that was talking about the existence of human beings and earth without including the sky.
Okay.
Whether it's sky god, whether more than one god, or so the sky was a pantheon, was a universe where higher beings called gods were living, and here on earth mortals, humans, were living.
Right.
And we were kind of at the mercy of the gods. So those were the stories that mythology speaks about, and they are metaphors for our life on earth and our inner life as well. Mm-hmm. So a lot can be learned from myth about individuals and about human beings. And because I had that language already, when that naturally takes you towards astrology, because the name of the planets are the name of the gods, and the qualities of the planets are very much reflective of the qualities of the gods. Okay. Both light and shadow, both good and bad. So astrology was a different layer of language while growing up. It wasn't necessarily my focus. My focus was to understand human beings. However, the more I started to read, the more I got fed, because what I was reading, there is a beautiful movement in astrology that happened around 60s, 70s. A lot of beautiful books were written by psychologists and psychotherapists who would have included astrology and traditional astrology in their practice. So they created this way of seeing them together. So I read a lot. I embraced those authors. They became my mentors. They became my number one way of understanding self and others. And that naturally made me embrace astrology as a practice, as a beyond the mental sphere. Like I started to live it, to see it, to discover it, to pay attention to it, to include it in my life. So I made the shift from a student of astrology to practicing astrology, not just with clients, but in life.
Wow.
Following the cycle of the moon, understanding seeing the planets in the sky, recognizing the planets, living with the sky. And then naturally, growing up and becoming an adult, I studied a formal training. So I trained with different astrologers, very good astrologers in the world. And then I said, I need to take this to a different level. So when I moved to Jamaica in 2014, that was 2014, 2015 were very Plutonian years for me, meaning I was sitting in my cave trying to transform self, where I was going through a transformation. My father died 3 months before moving to Jamaica, so I was grieving, and that was a different a thread of life that I was dealing with. And then I immersed myself in this master that looked into cultural astronomy and astrology, the only academic program in the world that exists. It's in Wales in UK, and they have this blend of philosophy and history and not practical astrology at all. So it's not what I do with my clients, but the theory and the philosophy behind it, and religion and everything. It was such a rich place to be, and such a challenging thing for me to do, because I'm not a native speaker. I've never, I started to it's almost like I dived very deeply into the unknown.
Yes.
And I took everything to a different level. So those 2 years, well, not many people would know about me in Jamaica, but I would slowly start to show up, do my workshops and express what I do. Those 2 years were very very essential in me deciding to include astrology, or to make astrology the base of my therapeutic practice, of my psychological practice. And then the help really came from someone outside me, when I got a call and from a therapist, a very well-known therapist in Jamaica, a psychologist, and they said, she knew me and she worked with me, and we worked through astrology, and she said, you're getting known. People know about you. People talk about you a lot. Like, I go to a dinner or I meet people and they talk about you and what you do, and you see, you are a psychologist and you are certified in your country, but we in Jamaica, we don't recognize you. So you don't have the certificate to be recognized as a doctor, because psychologists are doctors in Jamaica. So please, if you don't want to have problems, you have to stop saying you're a therapist. You are an astrologer. You're not a therapist.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
That being said, I took that as almost like a sign that what I was doing, but I wasn't owning it fully. Like I was combining. I was saying I'm a therapist. I was doing, like, I didn't really know exactly what I was.
Right.
But then after that situation, after that call, I said to myself, okay, what do I want? Do I go and do a PhD in Jamaica so I get a doctor status, and do I call myself a proper psychologist and go back into what I've always felt I'm not fitting in with? Or do I stay true to maybe the unknown, because I have no idea, how this is going to play out, and I'm going to call myself an astrologer, facing the stigma and facing the, people not knowing what that is, but use my healing abilities in every session I do, because I am a therapist. Even if I don't study psychology, I have an amazing ability to hold space for whatever people are going through, whether that's physical pain, mental pain, breakups, emotional pain. It's who I am. I grew up like that.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, I'm going to choose the sky as my partner, as my work business partner and field. So I'm going to choose the sky, and I'm going to call myself an astrologer. And that's how I started to own the title of astrologer. And I was saying, well, I'm an astrologer. I do counseling work. I do consulting work, whether it's you, your kids, your business, your marriage date, I do consulting using astrology, and whatever challenges you go through, I'm going to help you, because I'm also a psychotherapist. And I don't have any client that complains, like nobody complains.
No, that's so good. You said so many important things there. I'm going to pull on just two. One, you talked about that period when you just moved here, and you said something that really resonated with me about it. You kind of going into like a cave moment. You were going through your own personal transformation, right?
Yes.
And that period lasted about 2 years, right? And I've never actually heard that said that way, except for when I would talk about what I feel happened when I got sick and moved to Canada.
Yes.
I really feel like that 3 years in Canada was me moving into my cave to go through my transformation, kind of like in the Bible when it talks about David before he became king, he went and hid in a cave. But it was really because he needed to deal with all of the stuff that he'd been facing and was being called to another level. So you were being called to another level of your beingness,
Yes.
and you had to go and prepare for that. And then of course grieving the loss of your father, all at the same time. I totally, that really hit me here in my heart space. I understand it deeply. And I think it's okay for us as human beings, especially women, to acknowledge those cave moments. I just had an interview with an author that writes about women and struggling through transformation, burnout. She just finished a book. It's now a bestseller on the top 10 charts. It's called Wintering, and the entire book is about that, is about those moments. And she compares it to nature, and that nature has its natural cycle. So when you talk about our lives being a reflection of the sky, that we just don't, I think, give ourselves and our universe enough credit or even acknowledgement, appreciation for the guidance that we are given, the intuitive guidance that we are given. So that was really spot on. Thanks for sharing that. That was really big for me. Yeah, no, that's good. I just can't wait for our session, because I'm just like, I'm talking to you, I'm interviewing you, and I'm like, oh, I want to go back and find out more stuff about me. Like I need to go dig deep for me, So excellent. Now you talked about, transitioning here, and possibly that woman she was really giving you advice, even though I don't know whether it came from a good place or not a good place, but ultimately it helped you to make a decision, right? And that decision has taken you on a particular path at this time. How did that affect other areas of your life, the decision, and then being here on this island, relationships, love, how did that change for you affect your whole being?
I mean, so much happened, so many things happened, and so much. When I look back at the last 6 years of my life, it's been 6 years now since I'm here. I barely recognize the person that I am now compared to who I was before.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think the story starts before. I come from Romania, and Romania is very different than Jamaica. We are basically equal, all of us there. So in order to support my eccentric studies, I had to work on that. So I was working from a very young age. I worked, and I had a very good career in corporate. So for about 10 years, I was promoting, getting advanced and being more and more up
Climbing
in
that career
the
ladder.
ladder of corporate
Yeah.
life. And I can do many things. Like I know I have a very bright mind, and it was very easy to be in corporate, but I was also very much this person even in corporate. Like I would lead teams, and basically the coaching we would do, and the trainings, and the way I would hire people, and everything was very much Alina expressing herself through a corporate suit. So when I came to Jamaica, I came through my partner and I, we came here, and he got a corporate job, and I was like, okay, so maybe I can still be in corporate. So I applied for different jobs, and they would not come. although I had a very good experience and I had many interviews, and people would say, oh, you're overqualified, we don't have enough to pay you or whatever. So I said, okay, I'm taking this as another sign that I knew what I was going through because of my transits. I knew my chart. I knew what I was going to. I knew it was a huge transformation I was going through. And I think I gave myself permission to go through that. And I also had the support of my partner to be without a proper job, So that helped a lot. So I immersed myself in my studies and in my psychological work. And it affected my life because I grew, or I developed, not so much on the outside. Like, imagine the tree growing branches and flowering and making fruits, bearing fruits. I wasn't growing like that. I think my time for growing like that hasn't yet, didn't begin yet. I think there is still a lot to be done on the roots and trunk side, or the way I say, on reaching deeper and deeper, and creating a space where I feel very comfortable in the sense of, what am I teaching? How am I combining all these elements of psyche, sky, astrology, language? I still haven't found my magic.
Yeah, your sweet spot.
Or sweet spot, That's why we don't see books appearing from my belly. We don't see, big programs, and it's like I'm still gestating something. If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I wonder if I'm still gestating and I'm trying to birth it before it's ready. Anyway, girl, yes, keep going, keep going.
So it affected my life because while I had to leave behind the status, the names, and it really affected me when in Jamaica I was recognized as someone's wife, or an expat, or a white expat, and people were not willing to see me and to connect with me. Mm-hmm. And it was a very interesting process for me to make peace with everything I was, and to slowly speak up and unapologetically express myself in any situation, whether it was with a friend, with someone I didn't know, at the supermarket, with my partner, with his colleagues. So basically, we grew up very differently.
Right.
So our relationship went through a lot of turmoil. We were very unhappy. So, he followed his path, and he moved, and he grew in his career. And when that moment came, for me, it was, I have to stay here. I have to choose to work on those roots and those trunk and my own process. I can't pack again and move and start my process again in a different country. I can't do that. So that was one of the biggest changes of my life, was that I moved to Jamaica through my partner. Many people don't know that. And I stayed without my partner.
Girl.
So I stayed.
That's really brave of you. A lot of courage, because, I know how Jamaica can be in its non-accepting way. It's an interesting, the energy of the island is really interesting, I find. And so, it's one of those places where you can face a lot of rejection. It can almost beat you down if you're not really grounded and strong within yourself. And I think I really applaud you for seeing that you were at a particular point in your process and not being willing necessarily to let that go for somebody else's process, which is really, really cool. So I want to say, how long did it take for you to get over? Because it was a choice that you made. But
I don't think I'm there yet. I think a lot of my internal life and my internal, like the way I live with myself, has a lot to do with that choice, because I don't find that I made 100% peace with that, and I have tried to move on and build and do other things. And although I have this amazing reach capacity to do things and to be very active, there is a lot of like the tectonic parts that have to, like the puzzle that has to fit, that it doesn't fit yet,
Yes.
so there's something there going on that affects in a way my vitality and how I present myself to the world and how I share my practice. I'm still not sharing it fully. I'm not shining it fully like I know I could. And I think a lot has to do with a lot of guilt and a lot of internal conflict, in the sense that we have values, and one of my values to be a good person. I don't want to, it's hard for me to understand evil. It's hard
Yes.
for me to understand that we hurt other people. And my decision impacted someone's life, someone I love very much. I still love very much, and we still have a lot of love between us. And I in a way I kind of betrayed that for myself. So I was bad and
Yes.
selfish. I'm dealing with those things. And I think we all as women, especially women, deal with this internal conflict that may not be even real. It's conditioning. And in many of my sessions, I think I empower women to know themselves and make peace with their choices, because in a way that is my process too.
Oh, that's good. Make peace with your choices. Wow, I think I'm still doing that. Well, I'm still doing some of that. And it is a process. It is a process that we have to make peace with, so absolutely spot on. Oh gosh, okay. So we talked about boardroom, we did talk about bedroom. I do want to talk a little bit about your bliss, because you've made choices for yourself and your beingness, and for the betterment of your being. Talk to us a little bit about, how you navigate bliss. How do you self-care, self-love? What are the practices that you do to make you feel good, to feel like you're showing yourself compassion and care?
First of all, I want to say that this is an ongoing process, and whoever thinks that this is something you should feel or own or have with you without continuous practice, it doesn't work that way. It's much easier to be compassionate with others than to be self-compassionate. It's much easier to help others than to help ourselves,
Mhm.
especially as women.
Yes.
And for me, there are so many things that nurture me, and I go back to them when I need support. Um, One of the things that didn't work out for me before, and I discovered them by being in Jamaica, is um, as simple as creativity.
Oh.
So you see, Romania is a beautiful, wonderful country. And that side of the world, we have artists, and but it's almost like on a personal, individualistic level, you're not that allowed to be creative. And moving to Jamaica, if people don't know and they listen from other places, Jamaica, for me, a foreigner who didn't know much about this country and was not into reggae or weed, or for me, what I discovered here is that there is such a authentic creativity running through the blood and flesh of every Jamaican, whether that is how you speak and how the proverbs you use and the attitude you have, or the songs, or the ritualistic movement. Like, it's so easy to be creative. And this was one of the things that I loved about this country. And it's something that helped me tap into my own creativity. And I'm not an artist, and I'm not necessarily choosing that as my channel, but I definitely felt much more alive and more creative because I was living here. So when I self-nurture, when I have to take care of myself, I look into what can inspire me today. How can I allow this beautiful magic I have inside to come out through all the uncomfortable feelings I have, or fears, or circumstances, external circumstances? How can I allow that fluidity, that moisture to come out and create? So it can be anything from using words and writing, or or creating an experience, going somewhere and facing something new, discovering, exploring, talking with a new person, having a session with a client, and it's so creative and we do a lot of brainstorming. So I self-nurture through being alive, creatively alive.
Oh, that's so good.
That's my thing. That's my thing. Then on when it comes to a practice, I used to do much more yoga before 2020 because I need people and I need groups. So I would go to the studio to True Self almost every day. So yoga, I discovered yoga in Jamaica and that helped me a lot. It's I associate, like, for me, yoga is like a reflection of life. Like when I practice, I feel everything I feel when I don't practice. So, breathing through an uncomfortable pose, feeling all your emotions running through your body, being able to perceive the stiffness of your body. For me, this is like my mind, gets very active in those moments because I can see the similarities with life. So practicing yoga is teaching me how to live life in a more elastic, open, humble way. But I don't practice it as much. I wish I could do it every day, and I can do it, but I'm also very lazy. Nature is very important for me. Nature is, I can't, I don't know if I ever move from Jamaica, I don't think I can go back and live in a city, or I don't think I can go back to that life. I honestly don't think so.
Yeah.
I need to be in the sea. I need to be by the sea. I need to have the hills. Every day driving through Kingston and seeing the hills, for me, that is nourishment. Like, or the moon setting, rising, setting. It's just, I know people take for granted these things, but they bring me so much joy and centeredness.
Yes.
I don't have to book an hour in my calendar to practice meditation, or because I'm naturally meditating every time I am connecting to the hills.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, no, I get that. The simplicity of the the natural surroundings here on the island. Like, the moon gets me for sure whenever we have the full moon rising and you see it. It's just so, it's like it's right there. I don't know if it's the positioning. Maybe we're on the equator. and the birds get me. Just hearing the birds gets me every single day. It gets me. So I get it. Okay, that's exceptional. And actually, one of the things that I like about having women that I interview share their bliss practices is because I think when I had workshops in the past and I ask women about self-care, they automatically think vacation, they think spa, they think these big things that they have to do, and then they beat themselves up. Oh, I'm not doing, I'm not going and getting a massage, and I'm not going. Now, while those things are great, you don't have to get all the way to leaving your house or to going, leaving your country or your city to access bliss. It's available to you in very simple ways. And so I love the examples that you gave today for sure. Yeah.
I'm a bit different when it comes to these ways of self-care, because I'm so sensitive. And when I say sensitive, I mean, I don't really know what I mean. It's just that I not many people can touch my body. So I can't take a massage. Like I had Sarah B, who used to do massages for me when she was in Kingston, and she's a great intuitive healer, and she's great in like, she's beyond massaging me. She knows what to do with me energetically. So it's very hard for me to allow people to come close physically.
Yeah.
I it's not that I'm not open. Like I am a very touchy person. I like to hug people, but when it comes to pressing points, to massage, to acupuncture, there are a few people that I allowed, and they are my therapists. They are my people. Whether I work with crystals, like there is Pooja, who helps me healing on a energetic level, and she does all this crystal work and sound healing with me, and Sarah B used to do the massages, and When it was going to the spa, I always use Mary Ann, who now she has a studio. I think she still has it at Afia. So there are certain people. Oh, the only person that cuts my hair and deals with my hair is Terry Shukir. So
Oh,
I'm very particular about people coming close to my body and doing things to my body, because I'm very, very sensitive,
yes.
and I can feel a lot of pain, which other people don't. So when you go and have a massage and relax, I in order for me to relax, I need to float in the sea. Like the way I get massage is by the waves or the river. You know, when you swim, you go into the river and there is a small waterfall coming. There are so many here. A small waterfall, and then a little bit of water, and you swim against the current. That's
Yes.
the massage I take. It's like a very, very strong massage, and that's what I can take, you know. And other people wouldn't because it's too strong, but it's just the way I am built.
Okay. No, that's
Are
good.
you there?
Yes. Yes. No, I'm just listening. I'm listening. That's good. Okay. Now, I think one of the primary reasons why I asked you to join us today is to share about you and your journey, which I think is really important as we talk about the year ahead. So 2020 has been a very interesting year. And I have actually, the closer I get to the end of the year, the less I use words like challenging and difficult. And even though that may very well be the experience people are having, um, I've been very present to how those words make me feel energetically about 2020. And in many ways, I feel like that's not the truth for me. I feel that it's very much been another transformational space that I've stepped into. I think 2020 was me really stepping into an area of pressure, almost like I went into a pressure cooker. And while the experience was compounded by the pandemic, there has been so much learning and growth and expansion and abundance and opportunities. And I made up my mind once the pandemic, like before the pandemic hit, I was like everybody else. 2020 is the year of this and the year of that. And it was a general feeling of, oh my gosh, it's a milestone year. And I went into it like that. And when the pandemic hit, somehow I was still feeling like, I want to be on the side that finds the opportunities in this year. I want to be there, right? And now, looking back on it, I will say that this has definitely been one of the most successful and productive years I've had since I got sick 10 years ago, and in preparing for the year ahead, I really wanted to get some expert perspective on what we should be doing with our energy and how we should be navigating our mind and our language as we get ready for 2021. Because I'm concerned, or I have a sense that a lot of people are fearful about dreaming big and setting goals. They're kind of like waiting to see, well, what's going to happen now, So I wanted you to, share with us from your expert space of psychotherapy and astrology, your thoughts on this and how you would advise us or recommend to us to position ourselves for the year ahead.
Yes. I'll start with 2020. One of the things that happened at the beginning of the year, December and January 2020, was me having my workshops and talking about the year ahead and telling people that this is going to be a very transformational year, and all the foundation and the structures as we know them collectively and personally are going to be very challenged, in the sense that what you know to be truth, what you know to be there, stable, reliable, is going to be shaken up from underneath. So something is going to come to the surface, and it's going to shake up the foundations of your life or the foundations of your existence. I never expected a worldwide pandemic. I was concerned based on past transits and past historical events that 2020 might be a year where we would see some wars happening and more violence, and the big powers of the world shifting and changing due to violence. So that was my fear when I looked at the transits of 2020. It's very interesting how this year was reflected, like how it happened. I am still blown away by the way things happened, because I would have never thought it's possible to keep the whole world isolated.
I know.
Like, you know, when I do astrology, when I look into astrology and I try to translate every symbol, obviously I have almost like imagine a scale of, I believe a planet or an archetype has that much power. But what happened in 2020 showed me that there is much more power or energy in it that I could not have even, like I was too arrogant before in doing my work, in understanding my work, and now I've been humbled by what I have seen and the way I translated.
Yes.
And 2021 is actually the year where the change element comes in, not 2020. 2020 like a pause, stillness, or like a moment of, let's put this on pause and bring more stillness into everyone's life. Shake up the foundations. Let them see very realistically what is working and what's not working. Let them look into their values, into their value system, into themselves, because they lost control. So control was taken away. And with control, our entitlement and arrogance was taken away. So we had to become humble, and we had to innovate and to bring that radical acceptance of what is, and deal with things the way they were. Now, 2021, because of what's happening in the sky and the way planets align, I interpret this as a beginning, as a starting of a new cycle that has to do with change. But the change is very rapid. So, the planets that have been influencing, let's say influencing, although it's incorrect to say it. So far they were in Capricorn, they were in the element of earth. So a lot of materialism and a lot of earthy understanding of life has been dealt with, our jobs, our relationships, where we are, we can't travel to see our parents, so a very earthy energy. But now we are moving, these planets are moving into Aquarius. It's not such a big deal, like they move all the time.
Right.
Saturn was in Aquarius 30 years ago, and now it's coming back to Aquarius. And Jupiter, it's gonna go every 12 years is moving. So 12 years ago was in Aquarius. So what we see on social media about this year, the end of 2020 and 2021, I believe there is a lot of sensationalism in there and a lot of people not knowing what they talk about. But I'm not, I don't want to bother with that. I'm gonna speak through my podcast and my writings and my work. I'm speaking what I know of, and whoever has ears to listen to me and not to others, they'll probably be more, they'll have more common sense about the next year. So next year is going to start change. The change is going to be quite radical, and I expect a sort of extremism about the pace of change. So the how fast or how we are going to move through that change. And I was writing yesterday, because I'm sending my newsletter today, and I was writing about, is this showing that, is this year 2021 the start of a very rapid cycle of development and growth in terms of artificial intelligence, traveling through space, technology that is going to become minuscule or so different than the way we know it. Like now, we do everything with our phones, but I don't think this is going to be the status quo in a few years from now.
Right.
So Aquarius as an energy is the energy of the genius, inventiveness, unconventional, extremism. It's air, it's not earth. So a lot of stuff is going through the mind. Is the empirical truth. So things that are measurable. So I expect a lot of advancement in science and the way, and not just science, I think the word science has become a little bit narrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's we are gonna see a huge development in our paradigm. When I say this, how we interpret the world and how we understand the world, because of how we are going to invent different things that are going to open up new fields of knowledge or even expansion of consciousness. And I hope, from the perspective of the therapist, that we are not just going to advance rationally, but we are going to find ways to advance emotionally and to grow up emotionally, because I truly believe as human race, we are very much underdeveloped when it comes to understanding emotions and dealing with life in a healthy way.
Yeah.
But that's just my private feedback because of the work I do, and because, you know, I work with emotions and how people interpret emotions and what they do with them. But overall, 2021 starts a cycle of development, huge rapid development when it comes to science, rationality, new paradigms. And the change that we are going to experience is a change. It's almost like this. Imagine a square, or imagine you are at an intersection and you can't go straight. You have to go left or right.
All right.
Yes. So it's almost like a 90 degrees in front of you, and you need to make a choice, left or right. I know that both are going to bring change into my life. Left is what you know, familiar, conventional, tradition, the same religion you've been growing up, you know, things you know about the world, about relationships, about gender. And right is where we are all heading. And, you know, don't apply any politics on me, but it's like the other side is where we are heading, where a lot of the boundaries, the limitations, a lot of the concepts that were known and were traditional are going to be blurred and are going to be shifted. So the things that we see now with gender, how should I say this? I don't want to say gender development. I think it's gender exposure and gender exploration.
Yeah.
Many people do not understand what's happening. Like, you look at the new generations, the children you have nowadays. And these children can speak, and they have a language that I don't even know as a therapist where they got it from. And they speak and they know they can't identify themselves as a girl or as a boy. And they know that very clearly. So you see, this is one of the examples that I'm sure the next years this is going to explode in the world. Like, this idea of gender is going to be very different in a few years from now.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can look into everything. I think everything that is traditional, whether it's how we educate people, schools, politics, economy, how we treat our planet, everything that we are dealing with is going to go through massive change.
Yes. And
So,
that's just to kind of anchor that point, when I think about even like how I'm observing the world with climate change and the gender transformations that are happening, it's actually just a very common part of conversation now. So it's not so far-fetched anymore that you rarely hear about it. It's really very commonplace. And even with the pandemic in particular, I think I experienced a lot of observing of the climate and the environment. And, you know, I don't have this very detrimental view of, you know, we're all going to die and we're killing. I don't have that view, because I still feel that the earth is in charge and we're just kind of hanging out here. So I think whatever it needs to do to correct itself will be done, and we'll be experiencing that transition and transformation, similar to how everything came to a pause because of the pandemic. So I think that the earth has the capacity and the capability to create more of that, so that change, as you've said, being more rapid, I see it as something that is going to require awareness and sensitivity, so that you as a being that's a part of the whole can then make your decisions about how you're going to serve the earth, how you're going to live in harmony, how you're going to be open and compassionate and loving to this new generation. That you're absolutely right. Even the way that I would say, when I look at like 20-year-olds that I'm hiring now, even the way they think and the expectations they have when they come into a job, it's very different. You still have a few traditionals, but for the most part, there's a different type of expectation in terms of the experience that they want to have in this earth experience. So I can totally appreciate what you're saying about change and it being more rapid.
I think the next year is gonna also bring a theme to all of us in our awareness. I think the word for it is individualism, and I understand this as everyone is an individual in its proper right, no matter of beliefs, values, no matter of choices. And how do we all live in peace or in harmony with each other when all of us are unique? And this is basically the definition of Aquarius, is how do you create a community in which every individual is equal with every other individual, but they are special and unique, but still equal.
Yeah.
This is even hard to comprehend.
Yes.
Not to say to live, this is very, very, like, when I think about it, it's not easy. There are so many things that we understand as identity, from the simple belief in whatever religion you are following, or what you think about astrology, or what you think about gay, lesbians, all of these things are going to, whoever is not prepared to be very elastic, very flexible, whoever is not prepared to, it's almost like 2020 put us in a space where we had to look at ourselves in preparation for not being able to sustain that identity going forward.
Yes.
So
oh, that's good. That's good. The way you said that, that's actually spot on. It's like we had to recognize that life as we believe it has to be, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, so I think from the mundane day-to-day activities like job, relationships, how we parent, to bigger concepts and bigger like our institutions and how we travel, how we negotiate life, politics, economy, all of it connected, and the traditional ways are not going to have as much power. What we know to be true or relevant, or what we know because it worked in the past, it's not going to have enough agency and force to survive in the new times. And why I'm talking like this, because you say the earth is going to take care of itself. I believe that too, because Uranus, the planet of disruption and change and awakening, is in Taurus, the element of earth, the mother earth. So I believe whatever we do as human beings here, whatever we think we do, the earth is going to do something that takes care of itself and us, or not,
Or not, yeah.
What is happening across that point in the sky is the planet of materialism, conventionalism, structure and foundation. Saturn is moving in the sign of Aquarius, which is very extreme, very innovative, very rational, and very disconnected, almost insensitive. So Aquarius has this coldness that comes from the strong rationale, the strong mind, a coldness, almost like an insensitivity, like inconsideration for the personal sphere. So I am And when Saturn, this a cold planet, a very rigid planet, moves into a very rigid sign like Aquarius, I know intuitively that there is going to be clash between old and between tradition and unconventional, between accepted and taboo, and weird. Like I think if we all embrace the word weird, and if we all try to understand that life from 2021 onwards is going to be a little bit weird, it's going to be easier for us.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I totally get that. And also, we have somewhat had an experience of a very weird year, and everybody has had it. So it's not like it's novel. So moving into now where we're each having these unusual experiences or experiences different from what we have been accustomed to. I think it's almost like we were, as you said, 2020 was preparation for what is coming, really, so really very.
I was writing in my newsletter that when you look back in history, last time Saturn and Jupiter were in the sign of Aquarius together, which is going to happen on the 21st, everybody's talking about it. The last time it was in 1504, and that century, the 15th century, was basically a bridge, a middle ground between old and new, between modern and Renaissance and old. So it's like the space, the steps between the old world, the ancient world, and the new modern world, the 15th century.
Yeah.
So we are in the same space right now of bridging something that is old and the way we know it with something that is going to be a little bit shocking or surprising, or maybe not, because we are already so accustomed to these inventions and the fast pace of life. Maybe nothing is going to surprise us. Maybe if in 10 years we are going to travel to the moon, like we would travel to Miami, it's not going to be so surprising. So
it may be expensive.
Might be expensive, yes. Although we don't know about that either, because Uranus being in Taurus is affecting the world economy, is affecting the way we understand money and finances. And we see in the last years, we've seen all these how do you call them, coins,
digital currencies
coming and taking more space. I don't know anything about that, so I shouldn't talk about it. But there is, astrologically speaking, there is change in the way we understand wealth and money and currency. And I wonder if we are going to have market exchange, or like the Wall Street market and all of that. I wonder if that's going to be there in a few years. So there are changes. I think personally, that's what I'm working on, to create like a webinar and to create some small groups online to help people understand their own journey through 2021. Because in truth, you're working with me, you have to look at your chart to see what's actually going to happen for you next year. Someone may be very impacted by the changes and someone may not be, but they would still be impacted because collectively this is a time of change. But personally, I more and more, I'm afraid to talk, because I need to look at the chart of someone before talking about what's going to happen in 2021. So I do recommend people to get a reading, to do, to find an astrologer and look at the chart and understand what's happening for their own journey.
That's good. And I'll be doing exactly that. Because I'm just, not only am I fascinated and inspired by the conversation of connecting my life with what's happening in the universal realm and in the sky, as you say, but I also like you, I like having the different perspectives. I like hearing about the different ways that we can see ourselves and see our lives. I don't believe in this box. I'm not a box. I don't want to live in a box. And so I treasure being able to have this kind of access to insights like the ones that that you bring, you know. So that's great. This has been a great conversation. We're at the last question. I have one last question for you, which is how I usually close the show. And if you had one piece of advice or a quote or something that you live by that you think can serve the woman in this community, whether it is one area or multiple areas, what would that piece of advice be?
Yes, I think it's basically the foundation for me. It's a thought, a belief that whatever is happening in your life, if you find alternatives, if you find at least 3-4 choices or ways, you are not stuck. So it's not as hard as you think it is. So I think the advice is always find a way to bring 3-4 alternatives, solutions, ways of understanding, perspectives to whatever you are going through.
That's good.
You know, so how I react is how I react, but how you, Stacey, would react to what I'm going through would be different. How my other friend would react, or how Brené Brown would react, or so it's like inviting these different perspectives to look at what's happening and try to hear how they would do it, how they would react, because that gives you space, gives you alternatives, and that gets you unstuck, and it's easier to deal with whatever you are dealing through.
Yeah, no, that's very good. That's very good. Awesome. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Alina, for joining us. What's the name of your podcast so that persons who are listening or watching can check you out?
I think it's easier if you search my name, Alina Apostol. The name of the podcast is Living Astrology. It's like a thing. I'm living it. But then many other people have podcasts. 3 or 4 other people have podcasts called Living Astrology. So it's easier if you you search for my name, Alina Apostol. Okay. And Instagram is a good contact point because that's where I write and that's where I share almost like a daily forecast with the planets and the energies. And it's easier to go there as a point of contact.
Okay, excellent. Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that everybody that you've shared with that is either listening or watching has also learned a lot. So I appreciate you, and I look forward to sharing all the information that I get from my session, because I always do that. I come and talk about my business on the podcast. So I look forward to possibly having another chat with you in the very near future. So have an amazing holiday, and we will of course see each other soon. Thank you for joining us on the Balanced Lady Boss Show.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely. And yes, whenever you want, I'm here. I love talking with you. And have a great holiday season, and everyone have a great new year.